All right, so today you can see that my portrait is almost finished. I am at the place where I'm going to just add a few finishing details to kind of complete the work. So, and I'm going to give you a couple of tips for finishing. So, thing one is if you are distracted by some of the lines that you traced and are finding that you don't like that effect, you can take an eraser and gently erase those lines on your portrait so that you don't see those anymore. So you can see here, I'm just using my eraser to get rid of some of those lines from the transfer. So that's one kind of trick you can do to start making your painting feel finished. Another thing that a couple of you have asked is making the skin feel like smooth. There will always be a certain like level of not smooth because it is a watercolor painting, but one thing that is helpful, and it's kind of a subtle technique for you to see or to pick up, and it does come with practice, is so like if I'm looking at my painting here and I'm looking at the photo, I can see I have this area here in the middle that's too white. Like this shadow needs to pull over further, so I have kind of a line there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wet my paintbrush and squeeze it dry a bit. And so my paintbrush is wet with clean water. I mostly have it dry. And what I can do is this paint will move. So I don't have any paint on my paintbrush, but you can see that that paint is moving on my brush. So I just clean my brush off again. I'm going to dry it off again. And I can pull this paint around. So you can see I can gradually make that spot a little darker. And what that does too is smooth out any like kind of water spots that were left over in the paint and gives me just a little bit smoother effect. It gets those like stripy areas out of there. So you can see the other thing it did is it darkened everything a little bit, which was good. And that's definitely something I needed to have happen. So I can do this now a little bit of everywhere. And just kind of smooth out any of the spots that I'm not happy with their appearance, right? The other thing that will need to do is darken just a little bit some of these shadows around her eye. And this is the paintbrush I gave you guys. I've been working with a bigger paintbrush. I'm going to have to switch to the little bit smaller one here in a second. But this is the key to making the portrait feel finished. Like once I have all the rest of these details done, we sort of focus on people's eyes. And so having your portrait's eyes feel really detailed will help your portrait feel finished. So I'm just sort of darkening this edge. And I'm looking at her eye over here and being careful not to paint that white spot in. I'm going to try not to paint that white spot in anyway. And now this is crazy town looking. It's too much. So I cleaned my paintbrush out again, squeezed it dry, And what I'm going to do is the same thing that I just showed you to do. And I'm just going to pull some of that paint out and into this shadow area that I just erased the outline for, that I hadn't really painted yet. That goes all the way up to her eyebrow. So you can see I'm using very little water right now. Mostly, I said incredibly little water. I'm also going to add her other eyebrow in, so you can see I felt pretty confident with that side. Her brow might just need to be a little darker over here at the edge where it hits her hair. I'm going to go ahead and add this one in. Oh, my paper's a little wet still. Oops. Be careful. You don't want to add it when it's too wet. And then what I'm going to do now is switch to, like I said, this is the smaller brush that I gave you guys. And I'm just going to use the corner to pull a few of those little like details, like try to make that feel a little bit like hair. Soften that outer edge. Her brow kind of fades over here into the side of her face, so I'm just going to soften that up. And I'm also going to make the inside of her eye a little darker. So I'm going to grab some black. And I'm just going to use the very corner of this paintbrush to try to get into that center. So you can see how I'm holding my paintbrush like up and down to get that like detail spot into her eye on both sides. Not super happy with it on this eye, so I'm gonna kind of dab it off and give it another try. And then it's to, like I said, use this paintbrush now to start putting in a few of these finishing details so that it starts to feel complete. And usually once we get the eyes in, it will start to feel a little more done. And trying to be careful with this little tiny corner of the edge of this paintbrush. Making sure to, like I said, get those little details in. I'm gonna put in a little bit of paint here too. I didn't quite paint her tear duct. And I had said the other day too that if you're stuck and you're not sure if things are turning out, that a black and white photo is a really great way to kind of test and see how things are turning out, because it gets rid of the color and you just get to compare. So if I was going to do that, I would take my phone and take a black and white picture of the two of them together to kind of decide if that was coming along. Like there we go. Her eye isn't that white inside, so that helped a lot. But you can see like I'm down to the place where things are just sort of fussy details and finishing. So make sure that you don't give up too soon. Like we're at the place where sometimes these can feel like you can go to work on it today and you can feel like it's a disaster. Um, these will feel like that sometimes, and you do just have to keep working. Have faith. It will, they will work out if you keep painting. And like I said, the trick of it is to kind of use your paintbrush to kind of move and lift that paint around to smooth things out and kind of add the details again. If you want help, go ahead and send me a picture and I can give you some tips on adjusting or things to paint. Otherwise, these are due tomorrow. So there you go. Happy painting. Hopefully you're having fun.